Hi, this is Kim with Mom's Creative Moments. Welcome back to my channel. Today in Scrapbooking 101.5, we are going to talk about cropping. And so I have a bunch of things in my workspace on my table here that I want to share with you and talk to you about. So let's get to it. All right, so we're going to talk cropping today. And this can be a little bit of a conflicting issue for some people. When I crop photos or cut any kind of paper, I use my CM 12-inch trimmer. This is like my right arm. It's my favorite tool, hands down, that Creative Memories has made, although I do love their custom cutting system and many of their other tools as well. But this is the one that I use for every single layout in some form or fashion. So I use this for my photos as well. Many people prefer the personal trimmer. That's the one that looks like a guillotine. It has the arm that comes down to cut your photo, but it won't cut anything larger than a 4x6 photo, pretty much. There are some ways you can cut a 5x7, but nothing larger than that for sure. And I just have never seen the point in having one, and that doesn't mean that they're not of any value. It's just that as a military spouse, we were always limited in our weight that we could move each time we had to move, and I had to keep my supplies as limited as possible within a certain means. So I learned to do everything using a trimmer. I used a different trimmer before this one came available, and I just have always done everything on my large trimmer. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. I'm also going to use a variety of these. These are our custom cutting system shapes and blades, and we also have some jumbo shapes that go with this that are full 12 by 12 kind of size. But we're not going to worry about those today, because right now we're just worrying about cropping photos. And I wanted to talk to you for a minute about some of your photos, because sometimes we have photos like this one, for instance. I took this picture in Hawaii out the front windshield of our car as we were driving. So we've got the roof of the car up here, we've got the hood of the car down here, and it looks, you can tell that it's maybe not the best photo because of those things. However, if I simply put it in here, cropping can do wonders and change the way you look at your photos. So if I simply crop those things out, now it's a beautiful photo of a road in Oahu, and you would never know that I took this out the front window of my car, right? I might need to crop that out too. I'm not sure what that is. That might be something from the windshield or from the rear view mirror or something. I'm not sure. But anyways, so there we go. Okay, so something to keep in mind. However, you don't always want to just crop everything out. So when you look at this photo, for instance, if you were to just glance at it, you might think to yourself, well, that's a photo about all of these pumpkins that are down here. So we don't need all this up here. We can just crop that out, especially since you can't see my sweet husband's head. It's cut in half on the photo. So why would we don't need all of that. However, the backstory on this photo is kind of interesting. We didn't plant any of these plants that filled up this entire space with vines to grow these 13 pumpkins. We called them volunteers because they popped up in our yard one spring day and just started growing. And it turned out that some pumpkins had been thrown in this bin to make compost, and accidentally the bin had gotten opened and turned and dumped a portion of what was in there out, and it turned out that the seeds from the pumpkins ended up getting spread all over the yard, and we didn't even notice until spring when they started growing. So anyway, that is the story that is important for this photograph. So I wouldn't necessarily want to crop all of that out. That being said, since my husband's head is missing, I probably would go ahead and just crop from the top of the compost bin up, and then frame that, and then next to it write out the story that I just told you about. But those kinds of things are important to note and be careful of. This one I'm going to come back to in a little bit. This one is a sideways picture. Have you ever taken one of these, whether accidentally or on purpose, and then thought to yourself, well, that's trash. I'm not even going to print that. There's no point. Well, I just wanted to show you that you actually can salvage this picture and crop it and use it. So I'm going to go ahead and crop this photo at about right here. Okay, and then I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to line up that edge I just cut, and I'm going to line that up using my grid line so that I can keep this cut straight. All right, then I can use that as my straight edge and come in here and line up the corner of this cut. And then I can come up here, flip that around so I can keep it straight, and line up the corner of that. And look at that. Now I've got what looks like it was meant to be a straight photo of a group, when in reality it was completely sideways like this. But I can use that in my scrapbook and no one will be the wiser, right? All right. This one I wanted to show you because we all have things about our physicality that maybe we're not super pleased about or happy with, or sometimes we don't really know how to appropriately document that. Okay, I was still dealing with, and I still am, but it was really dealing with issues with my legs at the time, so I had to wear these wraps on my legs everywhere I went during our Hawaii vacation. And I don't know if I really want that documented in every single photo that I have. So I think I'd be very inclined to trim that out of this photo. And I could do that. I could crop it right here so that you can't see any of this down here. Or I could take my, use my custom cutting system and just go ahead and, since I don't want my feet to show anyway, I could just go ahead and cut around the two of us and create a cute little square photo. Then it doesn't look so much like I just chopped off the bottom half of the picture because I didn't like it. Right? So then we've got a nice rounded edge corner square photo that we can put in our album. Let's see. So this one is one where our focal point is the gentleman in the center who are removing the Kalua pig from the emu so that we can eat it. And so this one, you could trim it into a square, of course. That's entirely possible. You could trim it into a rectangle even. But I think with this one, I probably would choose an oval because of this oval cement shape that is right there. And if we kind of move it up a little bit, then we can actually get all three of the guys in there and a little bit of the crowd behind them to be able to see what was going on, right? And so that would be the photo that would go in instead of seeing all of the, taking up all the space in our album for all these people we don't know and their posterior end. This picture is a picture of Disneyland taken from the Ferris wheel in Disney, California. But half of the picture is just blue sky. And the other half of the picture is the picture of the park. So it really makes more sense if you simply take it in here. You want some of the sky in the picture, but you don't need all of the sky in the picture, right? And it looks a little more panoramic when you cut it down like that, because you don't have all this wide expanse of blue at the top. Same thing for this one, except that because we have this little bits of the tree up here on the top of this photo, I would leave this one alone just the way it is, because you're framing, or you're grounding the ocean and the wall by having the tree up here on top. So I would leave this one just the way it is. It is completely subjective. Whether you crop or you don't crop is completely up to you. I'm just giving you some ideas and the thoughts that go through my head when I look at something and try to decide whether to crop it or not to crop it. This one, I'm trying to remember what I was going to do with this one specifically. So sometimes when you look at a photo, you can see a shape in your mind's eye. You can see, oh, that photo would be perfect for a heart, or that photo would be perfect for an egg shape. It's very hard to find a photo that works well with a heart shape. It can be really frustrating if you're trying your best to find a photo that works for like a Valentine or something like that, and you really, really, really want to use a heart. It can be really hard to find one that works appropriately for that. All right, so this one I wanted to show you because do you see how the photo is taken at a weird angle? This was posted on a wall, and because I wasn't directly in front of it when I took the photo straight on, I ended up with these funny lines from the plaque that was on the wall. So I can fix that if I want to by coming in here and trimming off these edges. It makes it a little bit less distracting for the person who is viewing the photo if you do that, because then they're not trying to figure out the different angles and things like that. And then it looks a little bit more like a photo that was taken straight on. Let's see. This one of the gazebo. This one I would crop into a 4x4 photo, because all the landscape around the gazebo is really pretty, but you don't need this hotel that's back here, and you don't need the foreground down here. So I would just go ahead and center the gazebo. 4x4 means the 2-inch line is going to be your center marker. So find the 2-inch line, which is this one right here, and center the gazebo on that 2-inch line. Come in here and trim off the top, flip it around, put it at the 4-inch marker, and trim off the bottom. Now, if you look at that and you still think, whew, I can still see the hotel back there, I really don't like seeing the hotel back there. All right, well, we could make it just a little bit smaller. We could cut it in another maybe 1/2 inch at the most and bring it down another 1/2 inch from the top. And if we do that, then we get rid of the hotel blue in the background, and all we're doing is sacrificing some hedges on the right-hand side. And so there we have our gazebo that's nice and centered and the focal point of that photo. Oh, this one. So this is my little buddy Riker that I watch during the week. And he was helping me strip our tomato plants. If you look real close, you can see a bunch of green cherry tomatoes that are right here and some red ones up here that he couldn't reach. And he has a handful of yellow pear cherry tomatoes right there in his hand. So you could try, for something like this, I definitely want the green that's around him, because he literally climbed into my garden. He was in the middle of my garden plucking cherry tomatoes off of the plants, because we were trying to get them pulled in before the freeze. And anyway, I want to remember that. So I could do an oval where I can still get in as much of that greenery as possible. And an oval I think would be appropriate in this case, because what we can see of him is kind of an oval shape, versus doing a circle, which we could do too. A circle would work, but maybe an oval is just that much better, but they would both be just fine. It's kind of what did my dad used to say? 6 in one, a dozen in the other, half a dozen in the other. I think I would still do an oval on this one. I really do incline myself more towards doing circles than other shapes, but I think there are some photos that just really lend themselves better to ovals than others. So there, we've got him there. What happens when you have a photo where everything you want to see is on half of the photo? You really don't need to see the rest of it. That's where cropping comes in handy, right? So if you wanted to make this a 4x4, that dragon would be right in the middle of a 4-inch photo. If you put this end on the 4-inch line, he's right in the center, and then we can make that a 4-inch photo. If by chance you think that's too much, and maybe you don't want quite as much of the empty space around him, you could still cut that down and make it smaller. But I wouldn't go too much smaller. Maybe you could go as small as the gazebo by just taking a little bit off of the area around him. But if you go too small, then your pages get a little bit too full of too congested. They get too cluttered. So this is a picture of my daughter and her two lovely friends at a costume dance for Halloween. And we really don't, I feel like we really don't need all of the rest of the pictures of these people around them, because they are the focal point of this. So we could use one of these. That's not quite big enough. We could use We could use something like this to make a funny little border that goes around. And then I would just cut the photo closer to them. So I would come in here and see where her arm is, and then make sure that my blade is going to be roughly 1/8 of an inch from her arm. Flip this over, do the same thing, see where her arm is, make sure my blade is going to be 1/8 of an inch or so away from her arm, and then turn it this way and do the same thing with the top of that's a tornado. Her friend dressed up like the tornado from the Wizard of Oz, and her other friend was the Scarecrow, and she was Dorothy. Aren't they cute together? So if we did that, then we could come in here with this template and cut a squiggly frame that would go all the way around it. That would be fun. This one right here, I was going to show you, you can take your custom cutting system, center the focus person, because see, my husband was taking this picture using his phone, and he's kind of half out of the picture. So this picture really is of me, much to my chagrin. I don't usually like being the center of the center of the photo, but I wanted to show you that so these are some circles that I had that were cut, that were extra from a rainbow that I did the other day, and so I was going to use one of these to mat a photo, and I'm going to use it to mat this photo in here. So this was cut using the green blade, so I'm going to cut my photo using the blue blade so that my photo will fit in the mat. That's the purpose of the different sized or different colored blades, so that you can use your templates with the custom cutting system to make frames, as well as to crop your photos. So that photo would go perfectly in that circle. Let me see. Is there anything else that I have forgotten or not mentioned about cropping your photos? Don't feel like you have to crop your photos down. You really don't. At one point in my scrapbooking existence, I kind of went a little bit crazy with cropping photos, and I think I fit 13 or 14 photos onto one 12 by 12 page. Oh, and I don't recommend that. I really, really don't recommend that. I was trying to save a little money and not use as many pages in my albums because we couldn't really afford for me to go hog wild with it. And it served its purpose, but those pages that I crammed so many small little tiny photos onto are really hard to look at and differentiate the photos from each other. So just keep that in mind when you are cropping. You want to be able to see your photos still. You don't want to get so many of them overlapping and on top of each other and in each other's spaces, so that your eye is tired just trying to decipher which photo is which. All right, so I hope this has been helpful. I hope that I've been able to touch on some of your questions. If I haven't, please be sure and leave me a comment, and I will be more than happy to answer with what I feel is right, and I'm sure that other people will be more than happy to chime in as well. And if necessary, I will make another video to further explain if I haven't done so adequately today. All right, thanks so much for joining me. I hope this again has been helpful, and I look forward to seeing you next time. on Scrapbooking 101.5. And until then, I hope you have many more creative moments. Have a great day.